There is something very quiet, almost hidden, about the mornings inside Buckingham Palace. While the world imagined grand halls, shining silver trays, and long lines of servants, a different story was unfolding behind a simple door. The most powerful woman in Britain, Queen Elizabeth II, sometimes began her day not with orders, but with her own hands preparing something as ordinary as breakfast. It may sound surprising. A queen, standing in a kitchen, making her own meal. Even more surprising, according to reports from a former royal chef, some of these meals were not luxurious at all. They were simple, careful, and deeply personal. In a life filled with ceremony, these small acts carried meaning. Why would a monarch surrounded by staff choose to prepare her own food? What did these quiet routines reveal about her true character? And what do these morning habits tell us about discipline, comfort, and control in a life that rarely allowed privacy? Stay with me, because in this story, we will uncover 15 strange and fascinating details about the Queen's morning meals. Some will feel charming, others may feel unexpectedly human. Before we continue, if these stories bring back memories of tradition or family routines, you may wish to share them in the comments. And if you enjoy learning about history in a calm and thoughtful way, you might consider subscribing so you do not miss future stories like this. Now, let us step gently into those early hours. The first detail may seem almost too simple to matter, yet it says a great deal. According to accounts from royal staff, the Queen often began her morning with a plain cup of tea, not rare, not exotic, just tea, and is served in a familiar way. But on some mornings, she preferred to prepare it herself. This small choice invites a quiet question. In a life where every action is watched, could making tea be a way to feel normal, even for a moment? The second detail adds another layer. The Queen was known to enjoy cereal, especially Special K, which was reportedly kept in a simple plastic container. Not a golden jar, not a silver bowl, just an everyday item. On certain mornings, she would pour it herself, with careful, steady hands. It is a striking contrast. Outside, royal guards stood in perfect formation. Inside, a woman measured cereal like anyone else. If you find this contrast interesting, you may want to let us know your thoughts. Do small routines help create calm in your own life? As we move further, a third detail appears, and it feels almost comforting. The Queen sometimes prepared toast herself, lightly browned with a thin spread of butter or marmalade. Nothing heavy, nothing excessive. But here is where it becomes more personal. According to royal biographers, she preferred her toast cut in a very specific way. Small, neat squares, easy to handle, easy to eat. Why such precision? Was it habit formed over years, or a quiet way to maintain order in a world that often felt unpredictable? The fourth detail may surprise many viewers. The Queen had a soft spot for boiled eggs, but only when they were cooked for exactly a certain amount of time. Not too soft, not too firm. On mornings when she wanted control over this detail, she would oversee or prepare it closely. It raises another thought. When so many decisions are made for you, does choosing how long to boil an egg become more meaningful than it seems? At this point, you may begin to notice a pattern. These meals were not about luxury. They were about routine, control, and comfort. If you are enjoying this calm journey into royal life, you might consider sharing this video with someone who appreciates history. It helps keep these stories alive. Now, let us continue. The fifth detail brings us to fruit. The Queen often included fresh fruit in her breakfast, sometimes preparing it herself. Simple slices, clean presentation, no decoration, just natural food handled with care. There is something deeply human in this image. A monarch quietly slicing fruit, perhaps in silence before the day begins. But the sixth detail introduces a gentle shift. On some mornings, she chose yogurt, plain and modest, and no heavy sweetness, no rich additions. According to reports, she preferred balance and lightness. This leads to an interesting question. Was this about health, or was it also about discipline shaped over decades of duty? As the morning continued, the seventh detail reveals something even more telling. The Queen was known to avoid heavy breakfasts. She did not indulge in large meals to start the day. Instead, she kept things simple, often repeating the same choices. Repetition in this case was not boredom, it was stability. Have you ever found comfort in eating the same meal each morning? The eighth detail touches on preparation style. Even when staff were available, the Queen sometimes chose to arrange her tray herself, aligning items neatly, ensuring everything was just right. It was not about necessity, it was about intention. And finally, the ninth detail in this part of our story brings a quiet, emotional tone. These small acts of preparing food may have been one of the few moments in her day where she was not performing a role, not a symbol, not a figure of state, just a person, beginning her morning in peace. In a life of great responsibility, these simple meals may have offered something rare, a sense of self. And as we move forward, the story becomes even more revealing. Because behind these simple breakfasts, there were deeper habits, quiet rules, and personal meanings that few people ever saw. As we continue, the picture becomes more detailed and perhaps more touching. These quiet mornings were not only about food, they were about rhythm, memory, and a sense of quiet control that followed the Queen throughout her long life. The 10th detail begins with something many may not expect. According to accounts from former royal chef Darren McGrady, the Queen often preferred to keep her breakfast routine unchanged for years. While menus in the palace could be vast and varied, her personal choices remained steady. This constancy invites a deeper question. In a life where governments changed, world events shifted, and expectations grew heavier, did keeping the same breakfast offer a small anchor in time? There is a quiet strength in routine, and for the Queen, this strength appeared early each morning. The 11th detail brings us closer to her sense of independence. Even though staff prepared full menus daily, the Queen was known to select her breakfast personally. A list would be presented, yet she often chose the simplest items. At times, she would adjust the choice herself, quietly guiding what would appear on her tray. This was not refusal of luxury, it was preference, and here one may pause and reflect. When given many options, why do some people return to the simplest ones? If this reminds you of your own habits, feel free to share your thoughts. Many viewers find comfort in these shared experiences. Now, the 12th detail reveals a softer side. On certain mornings, especially during quieter periods at Balmoral Castle, the Queen was said to enjoy preparing parts of her breakfast in a more relaxed way. The setting was different. The pace was slower. The air carried a sense of distance from formal life. In these moments, breakfast was not just a routine, it became a small personal ritual. Imagine the scene. Early light over the Scottish hills, a simple tray, familiar food, and a rare sense of stillness. The 13th detail adds a layer of care. The Queen paid close attention to portion sizes. She rarely overfilled her plate. Meals were measured, balanced, and modest. This careful approach may reflect something deeper. A lifetime shaped by World War II and its lasting values of restraint and responsibility. Even decades later, those early lessons seem to remain present in the smallest daily choices. As we move forward, the 14th detail brings us to timing. The Queen followed a very precise schedule. Breakfast was not delayed. It was not rushed. It happened at a steady, predictable hour. This regular timing was not accidental. It was part of a larger structure that guided her entire day. And here, another question gently arises. Does a steady morning create a steadier life? Many who lived through earlier generations may recognize this pattern. Routine was not limitation, it was strength. If you feel connected to this idea, you may wish to support the channel by subscribing. It allows us to continue sharing these quiet, meaningful stories. Now let us continue deeper. The 15th detail introduces something both simple and symbolic. The Queen often read newspapers during breakfast. While she ate modest food, her mind was already focused on the world. This pairing of simplicity and responsibility is striking. A plain bowl of cereal, a cup of tea, and headlines that shaped nations. It reminds us that even in small moments, duty was never far away. The 16th detail offers another quiet insight. The Queen was known to avoid waste. If food remained, it was not carelessly discarded. According to reports, she respected resources and expected others to do the same. This habit again points back to earlier times, when careful use of food was a necessity, not a choice. Such values do not disappear easily. They stay, even in the most privileged settings. As we move along, the 17th detail reveals a gentle discipline. The Queen did not often change her breakfast based on mood. She followed her routine regardless of the day ahead. This consistency may seem small, yet it reflects a powerful mindset. When life becomes unpredictable, holding on to simple routines can bring quiet stability. Have you ever noticed how certain habits carry you through uncertain times? The 18th detail shifts our attention slightly. On rare occasions when guests were present, the Queen adapted her breakfast setting. The food remained simple, but the presentation became more formal. Even then, her personal choices did not change much. This balance between public expectation and private habit is both subtle and remarkable. Now, the 19th detail brings a more personal tone. According to some royal observers, these early morning routines were among the few moments when the Queen experienced true privacy. No ceremonies, no formal speeches, no large audiences, just quiet time, simple food, and her own thoughts. This may be one of the most meaningful parts of the story so far, because behind the crown, behind the history, there was a person who valued stillness in a very busy life. If this moment speaks to you, you might consider sharing this video with someone who values peaceful routines. It helps others discover these stories as well. And now, as we approach the final part of this journey, the story begins to deepen even further. What may have started as simple breakfast habits begins to reveal something much more lasting. These meals were not only about food, they were about identity, memory, and the quiet ways a person holds on to themselves through time. As we reach the final part of this story, the meaning behind these quiet mornings becomes clearer, and perhaps more moving than we first expected. What seemed like simple meals now begins to reflect a lifetime of habit, duty, and inner calm. The 20th detail takes us gently into the later years of Queen Elizabeth II. Even as age advanced, her breakfast routine remained steady. According to those who worked closely with her, she continued to prefer the same familiar foods, the same careful preparation, and the same quiet start to the day. This constancy was not accidental. It was a reflection of who she had always been. In a world that changed rapidly, she chose not to change the small things that grounded her. The 21st detail reveals something deeply personal. These breakfasts were often taken alone, not out of isolation, but out of preference. The early hours gave her space to think, to read, and to prepare mentally for the responsibilities ahead. There is a quiet strength in beginning the day in silence. It allows the mind to settle before the world begins to speak. Have you ever noticed how different a day can feel when it begins in peace? the 22nd detail adds a gentle emotional layer. Over the years, many people came and went within the royal household. Staff changed, roles shifted, yet her breakfast habits remained familiar. In this way, the routine may have served as a quiet thread connecting different periods of her life. It was something that did not leave, something that stayed the same, even when much else did not. Now, the 23rd detail invites us to consider the influence of upbringing. The Queen was raised during a time when discipline, order, and modesty were deeply valued. These lessons were not only taught, they were lived. And so, even in the privacy of her own breakfast table, those values appeared again. Simple food, careful portions, no excess. It was not about restriction, it was about respect for balance. As we continue, the 24th detail brings us closer to the emotional heart of this story. Food, for many people, carries memory. A taste, a texture, or a routine can connect us to earlier times. For the Queen, these morning meals may have carried echoes of her youth, of earlier days before the crown, before the weight of history rested on her shoulders. In this way, breakfast was not just nourishment, it was quiet remembrance. And now, the 25th detail introduces something thoughtful. According to reports, even when travelling, the Queen often tried to keep her breakfast as close to her usual routine as possible. New places, new surroundings, yet the same simple meal. This suggests something important. When everything around us changes, holding on to one familiar habit can provide a sense of home. The 26th detail adds another layer of meaning. The Queen's careful approach to food also reflected a broader sense of responsibility. She understood the importance of example. Even in private habits, there was a quiet awareness that her choices carried weight. Simplicity, in this case, was not only personal, it was symbolic. It showed restraint in a position where excess would have been easy. Now, the 27th detail shifts slightly toward reflection. Many who observed her life noted her remarkable consistency, not just in breakfast, but in duty, speech, and presence. This consistency created trust. People knew what to expect, and in uncertain times that reliability became deeply valued. Could it be that these small morning routines helped build that larger sense of steadiness? It is a gentle thought, but a meaningful one. As we move toward the close, the 28th detail brings a quiet sense of dignity. The Queen never turned her breakfast into a display. There were no grand announcements about her habits, no effort to present them as something special. They simply existed, quietly, day after day. And perhaps that is what makes them so powerful. They were real, unchanged by attention, unmoved by expectation. Now, the 29th detail offers one final insight. These simple meals remind us that even the most extraordinary lives are built on ordinary moments. A cup of tea, a slice of toast, a few minutes of silence. These are not grand events, yet they shape the beginning of each day, and over time they shape a life. In the final moments of this story, we are left not with luxury, but with something far more lasting. A sense of calm, a sense of order, a sense of knowing who you are, even when the world sees you in many different ways. The life of Queen Elizabeth II was filled with history, responsibility, and public duty. But in the quiet space of her morning routine, we see something deeply human. We see a person who valued simplicity, a person who found comfort in repetition, a person who understood that even the smallest habits can carry meaning, and perhaps in our own lives, there is something to learn from this. Not about crowns or palaces, but about the quiet choices we make each morning, the way we begin our day, the way we hold on to small routines that bring us peace. Because in the end, it may not be the grand moments that define us most clearly. It may be the simple ones we return to again and again, without needing to explain why. And in that quiet return, there is a kind of strength that does not fade,